Hey, what is up guys? This is Nihar, and for my first video, I thought I'd show you guys my BSPWM setup. So before we go into this, I just want to talk a little bit about my Linux history. So I've been using Linux for almost an entire year now, and for most of my time I actually was on Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop, but recently I transitioned over into NixOS, and I've used the tiling window manager called BSPWM, and I feel like this is the best fit for me. So the first thing I want to talk about now is actually the difference between a tiling window manager and a desktop environment. So I just have this markdown file pulled up with a couple notes. So starting off with the difference between a tiling window manager and a desktop environment. With tiling window managers, the main feature is that, of course, your windows are actually going to be tiled rather than them being floating. So for example, if I go onto workspace 3 and I just click mod and then enter, and your mod key is usually your Windows key, or you can bind it to the Alt key, but usually most people have that as their Windows key, and my key binding is mod and then enter, and I can pull up a terminal. And with BSPWM, you have this kind of binary space partitioning thing going on with the windows, so they're basically split like this, and I find it pretty nice for my workflow. So I can just close these with mod and then W, and then we can just go over to workspace 2. So the next thing is that with tiling window managers, you actually configure your window manager using code. So with a desktop environment, you're usually going to configure it using a GUI if there is any configuration at all. And with tiling window managers, you actually configure them using one file or multiple. It just depends on which window manager you're using. For example, Awesome Window Manager can be modularized into many different files, but usually with BSPWM, you have it in a single bash script. So I'll show you guys that after we go through these notes. The third thing is that with tiling window managers, you have an extensive use of keyboard shortcuts. So as I showed you guys, mod and enter opens up a terminal, and usually with a desktop environment, you're gonna mostly use the mouse to do things. For example, you'd have a little start button on like your panel, and that would pull up, a nice menu where you can pick your program. And with tiling window managers, you have the freedom to keybind a lot of different programs. So I could have a keybind to open my web browser, for example, mod B. I could pull up, Brave browser or Firefox using that. So the next thing is that tiling window managers are extremely minimal. So for example, with BSPWM, it actually is all BSPWM is the window manager. So it does not come with a bar or it doesn't even come with a hotkey daemon, and I'll talk about that a little later as well. So you need to install a separate program called SXHKD or SimpleX Hotkey daemon, and that is able to control your actual keybinds, and that's a separate file rather than just being in the same file as your configuration of your actual window manager. For example, i3 is actually configured all in one file. Even your key bindings would be in the same file. And I actually had to install a separate program to get this bar. If you guys know about Polybar, it's this really nice and highly configurable bar that you can basically make it look however you want. If you've seen on different subreddits, people have pretty interesting looking bars. I just have mine configured like this, and yeah. And so the last thing is that you have these workspaces, and I've already kind of showed you those, but it's a really nice way to organize all of your windows. So I have different workspaces here, so you can just separate your windows based on a workspace. For example, you could have workspace 2 just have your software development windows. Workspace 3 could just be like your chat windows, all of that stuff. And then finally, tiling window managers are great for people looking to dive deeper into the terminal. So before I actually got into BSPWM, I was pretty much used to using GUI file managers and mostly GUI applications. And once I got BSPWM, I started to use the terminal a lot more, and I'm pretty good at using the terminal for different things like file management and using simple commands, and I even learned how to do bash scripting, so that's pretty nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I can just exit that, and let's just make it a little smaller. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the actual BSPWM configuration. So I have an alias for that, and it's letter B, and if I click enter, it'll open the BSPWM configuration file. And as you will see, this is actually a bash script. So at the top you have this little shebang thing that tells the computer that this is actually a bash script, and this is only around 20 lines, which is actually pretty crazy. I've used like i3, and I've used a couple of the window managers just to see how they were, and the configuration files are pretty huge. So this is one of the reasons which I really decided to go with BSPWM, is because of the configuration file being really small, and you can have this to get this to around 10 lines if you really want to. So yeah, going into the actual code, the first section is actually the auto start, as I have a comment right here. So what this line 4 does is it actually starts up SXHKD. So as you'll notice, all of these lines are actually terminal commands, and that's what is really nice about a bash script. So for example, this line 11, I could just run this in the terminal, and it would, run this actual command. So basically this configuration file is called right when the system starts up. And I have this PyCom, these two lines, so basically it kills PyCom and then restarts it in case, I need to restart my window manager, and I already have PyCom open. That's what it does. And then I have FEH, which is a really nice wallpaper setting tool. And if I cd into my pictures, and then I go into, if I go into wall, I can actually open these using FEH as well and set them as my wallpaper, so it's a really nice image viewer as well. So here, let me cd into NixOS. Oops, NixOS, and then I can do something like FEH, and then let's just copy that, Control V, and then it will open up. So it's pretty nice. So I just have it set my wallpaper, and then I have this line which actually launches my polybar, and that's also a shell script. And then what you'll notice about these next lines is that it has this BSPC at the beginning, and if you know, when you're running terminal commands, usually the first word is going to be what program you're using. For example, when I use FEH, it's going to be FEH as the first word, and then the second argument will be your actual, your command that you want to run. So for example, you have BSPC for BSPWM. So it's really cool that BSPWM is configured using this program called BSPC. A lot of other window managers are configured in a lot of different ways, but this is something I really like. As I said before, you can actually run it in the terminal, and you can find some pretty good documentation for BSPC. I can link that in the description to show you guys all of the different options and arguments that you can add. So this is just a bit of window information I have here. So I set the border width to 0, set a bit of gaps, and then I have some information about the pointer and the focus. And then lastly, I have this rule which basically sets the program mumble to floating mode when I open it. And you can set a lot of different rules. So you can set a program to only spawn on a certain workspace, and that's just really nice. So speaking of floating, you can actually change your windows into floating mode. So I have this key binded to mod S, and as you can see, this is in floating mode now, and I can move it around with mod and then click, left click, and I can move it around, and I can resize with mod and right click. So that's pretty nice, and that's how you see a lot of these interesting screenshots. People actually put their windows into floating mode, and they take their screenshot rather than having them in tiling just to show their wallpaper. So that's just something interesting. And you can click mod S to toggle back, or mod T, sorry, to toggle back into the tiling mode. So now we're gonna go into PyCom. So I have that binded to P, click enter, and this is a pretty quick file. So I have my shadows here, so I just have the variable shadow equal to true, and this syntax is pretty easy. It's basically just keys and then values, or you can just think of them as variables. So I have these shadows set to true. I have some information about the radius, opacity, and offset, and then we have the fading, and as you can see I do have fading in between my windows, or when I open up windows like that. Yeah, so I have some information about that. I have my fading set to 5 milliseconds, and then the actual opacity of my windows, that's how I get transparency, I have that set to 0.8. So then I have the screen tearing, and basically I have vsync equal to true, and then backend equal to glx. And PyCom is really important because that's how you can get all of these cool animations, and it also removes your screen tearing. So it's a really nice compositor for you to have. It's actually forked from another older program called Compton, if you ever heard of that. But most people are just using PyCom nowadays. So let me exit out of this. And then we can actually go into my key bindings. So I have this alias to SX. Click enter. I have SXHKD, and as you can see it has a pretty simple syntax. So basically what you have is you have your two keys, so super and then return, and then you just have a next line and then a tab, and then you have the actual program that you want to open up. And you can do this similar to like a bash script. So I have this rofi script, rofi-show.run-theme1dark, and that's like how you'd run that in a terminal. So you can use all of those commands in here. So basically I just have some BSPWM hotkeys to quit, restart, close, kill, and then yeah, basically do some information with the actual windows. I have some focus swap states here. We have some pre-select keybinds. So basically I can actually when I spawn a new window, you can pre-select where they go. So if you want it to actually go to the left rather than the right when you spawn a new window, you can actually pre-select that using a keybind. You have some resizing keybinds, and then I have my volume and brightness, or not volume and brightness, I don't know why that comment's there, but I have this power menu that's Control-Alt-P, and I actually created that using Rofi, and I can show you guys the code in a little bit. So yeah. So now what I want to show you guys is my screenshotting utility, which is called Screenshot Wiz, which I made, and it's actually using Rofi, which is a menu maker, or a menu tool, and most people actually use Rofi for its run menu to run programs. That's what I used it for at first, but then I found out that you could actually make custom scripts, and it's pretty useful for that. So I have this screenshotting script. So basically how it works is I just click the screenshot button on my polybar, and then it gives me this nice menu, and I have a bunch of different types of screenshots I can take. So the first one is a regular screenshot, and what it will do is it'll copy it to my clipboard, but it won't actually copy the image to my clipboard. It'll create a link on the internet, and it'll copy that to my clipboard. And then I have this screenshot, which will just copy that to my clipboard. I have the screenshot save, which will write to my disk, and it'll put it in a certain directory I have. And then I have a screenshot select, so I can actually select a area that I want to take the screenshot, or I can just select a certain window, and it'll also copy it to my clipboard, and it will create a link, and that the link will be copied to my clipboard rather than the actual image. And then I have one where it just copies the image to my clipboard, and then finally I have one where I can select the area, and then it will save it to my computer. So let me just show you an example of one of these. Let me just go to workspace 5, and let me just pull up let's just pull up files, and then we can put it into like, I don't know, we can put it into floating mode, do some cool stuff. Click that, and then I have, let's just do the first one, which will take a screenshot and then copy a link to my clipboard. So we click enter and wait a couple seconds. Just I don't have a notification system set up, but that would be nice to actually show a notification once it's copied. And then what I can do is, let's just open up Firefox, and we can open that PNG there, and that is actually the screenshot. And it's really nice that it's actually a URL, because it's really easy to send over, you know, Discord or like Mumble, rather than an actual image that could take up a lot of space. Let's do another one. So let's take a selection. So let me open up another program, and we'll actually just select that program as the okay, let's open up Ranger. Okay, we're not opening that. Let's open up Ranger, and then we can click the screenshot, and then screenshot save, select save, and I can just click that. It'll ask me for a file name, and I can just call this Ranger, click enter, and then it will write it to my pictures. So let's go down there, screenshots, Ranger, and it's right there. So that is actually pretty cool. And let me show you the code for that. So let's cd into scripts, and then we can go into the screenshot wiz.sh. And it's actually really simple how this works. Let me just run you through the code. So first I have a couple of variables, and these are just strings, and these are just the labels basically of what the actual commands are. So I have screenshot link xclip variable, and then screenshot select link xclip variable, and then I have all of these methods right here. So these are all of the actual functions that run the screenshots. So I have this screenshot link xclip, which is going to take a screenshot. It will create a link, and then it will copy it to my clipboard. So I'm using my image for that. I think that's what it is, or mime, and that's how I take a screenshot. I cd into my temporary file. I curl, and then I use this 0x0.st argument, and basically what this does is it puts it on this website on the server, and then it will copy the link to my clipboard, and then it will remove all of the files in the temporary folder, so it doesn't actually get saved to my system. And basically I just that's just one of the methods here, and then I have a bunch of them for all of the different screenshots. And then I have this chosen variable, which you pipe in a printf with a string separated by new lines, and those are just the different menus, or the different options. And then I have rofi-d menu-p, which is the actual prompt, and then I have the theme, which is OneDark. And you can download a lot of themes from GitHub. I just chose a OneDark theme to, you know, fit with my color scheme, kinda. And then you can actually, after you select a screenshot, or after you select an option, what it would do is it will echo a whatever option you selected in standard output, and you can use that, and you can decide what you're going to do with it. So I just use the case, and then I just run the methods like that. So lastly, I want to show you guys my polybar setup. So let's cd into .config. I actually don't have a alias for this. Oops. So cd into .config, and then let's cd into polybar, and then I actually have quite a few files here. So basically what polybar uses is something called the ini format, or the ini file type. So let me just v into modules.ini. And basically how this works is you have these square brackets, and you have the module, you have the word module slash, and then whatever the name of the module is. So I have this menu right here, and then I have all of these different keys and values for them. So for example, you have this module for BSPWM, and that is the actual workspaces, and this is how it connects them up using my polybar. So I just have these all of these different keys and values to set different information about it. So I have the format, I have the label focus padding, I have some of these options like pin workspaces set to true, and I have a background, and you can actually reference files in your configurations. So for example, when you go into the main file, which I have here, which is config.ini, you can actually include files. So that's how I include my colors file and the modules file, and you can call like modules dot something or colors dot something for a variable or a certain module. So we can go into colors.ini, and we can just see we have this nice little section called colors. So if you don't have an actual module and it's just some information like variables, you can just put the word or the section type in the square brackets. So I have this background, background alt, foreground alt, primary, secondary, and alert set to these hexadecimal colors. And then once we finally go into the launch.sh, so let's go in there. And this is basically just a shell script. Well, it is a shell script. And again, this is similarly to how you run terminal commands. So I just copied this from the Arch wiki, and I just replaced this with the actual I replaced this with the actual name of the bar. So you have this main module, which is the actual bar, and you can name that anything. So I just called it main because that's what it was by default. And then you can just launch the bar using that. And then wherever you auto start your programs, so if you're in BSPWM, it's just in your configuration, you can just run this script, and it will actually kill and restart your polybar, which is really nice when you restart your window manager when you make changes. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video. If you guys have any questions about my configuration or about BSPWM, please put them in the comments. And if you guys want to see any more videos from me, just let me know. Thanks.